Hi everybody, I'm Susan Mulvihill on a very cold day here in Spokane, Washington. How would you like to learn how to make a holiday container or a wreath from materials that came from your garden? Well, that's exactly what I'm going to show you today, coming up. Oh man, it's cold out here. The first thing that I want to do is to decorate this galvanized pot. I got this from Gardener's Supply a few years ago. They still sell them, and I just think that is the coolest thing, and it's got little handles on it. So yesterday I cut some branches from some of our fir trees and some pine trees and gathered some other different types of things from our yard. And of course, it wasn't supposed to snow last night, but now everything is covered with snow. Even this pot, which I filled yesterday. This is just filled with old potting soil because I wanted something that I could push the branches and other things down into. So let's get started with that. Now, for those of you from Florida and California, this is what we call naturally flocked branches. Didn't cost me a cent. So I need to kind of knock that off. And I'm just going to look and see what all I have and decide what will look the best. So gathering natural materials from your garden is just the coolest thing. Doesn't cost you anything. And it's just a great way to make sort of a homemade Christmas. And if you don't have pine trees and other types of conifers, that's okay, because use what you have there. And if you see that a neighbor has trimmed some branches, maybe you had a windstorm and somebody's tree branches came down, ask if you can have them. I'm sure they'll let you. And it will give you something that you can make your decorations with. So one of the tools I have on hand for this project is a pair of pruners. And I've got a really cool branch here. This is from a fir tree. And I really need to eliminate some of the lowest branches so that this can be pushed into the soil within the pot. That should be enough. Let's see. Oh boy. The potting soil has frozen. Ugh. Okay. Okay, we're back in business. Bill came to the rescue with a screwdriver and a hammer, and we were able to punch some holes into this. It has been so cold here for a couple of weeks now, and it's really getting old, and we're not even into winter yet. So I'm going to push in some more now that I know I can. And I have to tell you, I've done this before, but I'm totally winging it because every year I try to make it a little bit different. And I just want to have some really nice greenery around. There we go. Oh my. I certainly wasn't expecting frozen soil, but I guess that's to be expected. Okay, let's see. What else do I want to do here? Okay, some other things I have are red twig dogwood branches. And so I thought it'd be fun to just push some of those in. For a different color and texture. Let's see. big one in the back. So there's really no right and wrong way to do this. Just do what suits you and it'll look great. Now I decided I wanted a couple more red twig dogwood branches, and the interesting thing is that it looks like a moose has chewed on the ends of a lot of the branches. That's something they like to do. So that's interesting, and we didn't get to see it. As long as they don't cause a lot of damage, we're very happy to get to watch them. Now the other thing I have is some dried allium flower heads. And I'm not sure if this is going to look good. Just kind of winging it. But might be cool. I have to be careful pushing them in so that I don't break them in that hard soil. That is a very tall stem. Maybe we won't do that one. Got cars driving by through the snow. Okay, there we go. That might be as low as that goes, so that's not going to work. Put it back farther. You know, and this is something where you just try something, see if it looks okay. And if it doesn't, try another way. Boy, they sure stick to each other. Let's see. I kind of like the idea of 3 different heights. We'll see how that looks. And then for a little finishing touch, how about a buffalo check or buffalo plaid, whichever you call it, bow out in the front. I have used this bow in the past. I love buffalo check. It's so cute. Now, I am so glad I get to make the wreath indoors because my hands are frozen. Boy, am I glad to be back indoors where it's nice and warm. So the first thing I want to show you is the types of materials that you would need to make a wreath. And making your own holiday wreath is super easy. You can make it as fancy or as simple as you want. And the best thing for those of you who are gardeners is that you can use a lot of things from your yard. And that's cool. You can see I've got some greenery cut here. This is Douglas fir. This is Brood Nest spruce. I also have some regular green spruce that is waiting in the wings. I also have a little bit of arborvitae. And the thing I want to tell you about greenery is that don't go overboard cutting it because you will typically not need as much as you think. And I've been doing this for years, so ask me how I know this. You'll also notice I've got a grapevine wreath here. You can use all different kinds of wreath forms. And I think the easiest one to work with is a grapevine wreath because you don't have to wire everything on. You just stick them into the little nooks and crannies within the grapevines and they hold great. So this is the one I recommend, but when you go to a craft store, you're going to see all different kinds of wreath forms and just use what you prefer. I also have a pair of gloves because these things can get kind of prickly. You'll also notice that I have a little piece of ribbon attached to a loop where the wreath hangs by, and that is on the top back of the wreath so that when I'm putting it together, I decorate it accordingly, knowing that this is the top. So that's a simple little trick I've learned over the years. Now just a little while ago I cut a few sprigs of bee balm. You can see here's their dried flower heads. I like to leave all of these for the birds, but I thought maybe it would be fun just to cut a few and poke them into different parts of the wreath. These are little quick fire hydrangea blossoms that have dried, and I thought those might look cool in there. You know, when you're making a wreath, you have to just wing it. I've got some ribbon and actually a bow that I'm going to recycle since I'm going with that buffalo plaid or buffalo check theme out front. And then when you're at a craft store, you might see some different types of things like berries and sparkly foliage and so on. But it's cool if you can keep this a very economical project. Another thing you're going to probably need is some floral wire. It's very inexpensive. It comes on a little paddle like this. And then if you do need that kind of wire, it's good to have a pair of diagonals or wire cutters. And then you're going to want some hand pruners for trimming the foliage that you're going to be poking into the wreath. That's all there is to it. Okay, so I'm going to start by putting some Douglas fir branches into the wreath. You can see you just sort of poke it in. And don't worry about anything sticking out of place because you can tidy that up as you're finishing up the wreath. But I do like to use Douglas fir because it makes kind of a nice base. It's real soft and pliable. And so you're just going to work your way around the wreath form. Putting in some branches. And my goal is to have at least the front of the wreath and the inside covered with greenery. Okay, you can see that I have gotten Douglas fir around the whole wreath. The bow showing me where the top center of the wreath is right here. And I wanted to show you something cool. So that Douglas fir also has pine cones on it right now. And look at how those coordinate with the hydrangea blossoms. So I think that's going to look cool together. But the next thing I want to do, because I want to save the accents for last, is some of this arborvitae is really pretty. And so I'm going to just put a few little accents of that in here and there, just for a different texture. So at this point, this is when you could put in some other type of greenery if that's the type of wreath that you're making. You know, there are so many ways to do this using all different kinds of materials. So just go with the flow. Do what you like. Now what I want to do, I need to flip it around. So you're going to be looking at the bottom, well, the top of the wreath. But this way I can really pay attention to where things are and what needs filling, etc. So I am going to add in some of these Douglas fir pine cones. And one thing that might happen is if these seem too heavy when I hang it, I can very easily wrap a little bit of that floral wire around to hold things in. So I'm not going to worry about that. And let's see, maybe another one over here. There we go. You can see how fluffy this gets. And then I might not need to have this one in because, well, no, actually I kind of like it. So again, here's the top of the wreath right there. And so I've got them kind of in these spots. Now I could put in some of this hydrangea flower here and there. And I'm going to leave this top area available for the ribbon, so I don't want to put too much right there. Now before I forget, I want to put in some of these bee balm flower heads. And they're probably a little bit fragile, but I'll do my best to get them in here and there. You have to just keep moving them until you feel them go into the wreath. There we go. And they'll certainly look more natural if you group them rather than just doing a single flower head per place. Okay, so I think what I should do at this point is to put the bow on top, and then that way I see how much more room I have for decorating. Now when it comes to making a bow for your wreath, I heartily recommend getting yourself some wire-edged ribbon. That is so much easier to work with, and as you make the loops you can shape them the way you want. I am using the floral wire to wrap it all together. So basically with making a bow, you're making a bunch of loops of varying sizes and then wrapping them all together with the floral wire. And I'm certain there are a ton of bow making videos on YouTube, so I won't take the time to do that here. But this is what I'm going to use, and I'm going to use the floral wire to attach it to the wreath. Well, I think it's time to go hang it up, don't you? I added in a couple more of the hydrangea flowers and poked in a few more bee balms, and I am really pleased with how this came together. So this really is a gift from the garden. Okay, here's the wreath. I'm pretty tickled with how it turned out. And you know what it says to me is, this is our home, welcome, and happy holidays. Thanks so much for watching today, everybody. I hope you'll go out into your garden and see what types of things you can use for your holiday decorations. Happy holidays.